Kia ora and hello from Aotearoa, New Zealand. This is Glenys from the Care of Truth Academy, and in today's video I'm going to talk about the need for healing, because sometimes healing can be a bit of a daunting and or tedious process if you really don't understand what is the need for it and where it comes from. And so from the ages of 0 to 7 years old, whatever happens to us as children is stored in our mind, body, spirit systems. Now this is great if you had a loving, happy family who did everything together and had a healthy relationship. However, if you've experienced any form of trauma or abuse, whether physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, sexual abuse of any kind, then all of those experiences will be stored in your mind, body, spirit. And so what happens as a child is that we're born with our connection to spirit and source completely intact. And if we have parents or an environment or a situation that is not helpful or valuing us as people or as children or our experiences or our feelings or emotions, then every time someone says or does something to us that is negative or abusive or hurtful in any way, those experiences become stored emotion because they've had no chance to be expressed or acknowledged in any way. And so it's like every time as a child that you were put down, that you were criticized, that you were hurt, that you were hit or beaten or abused in any way, it's like there's a spiritual cut or wound that happens in your mind, body, spirit as a child. And obviously as a child you won't know this is happening because you have no power over what the adults in your situation are doing to you or with you. And so you don't know that this is going on. And so whatever happened to you between the ages of 0 and 7, whether that was positive or negative, is stored in your mind, body, spirit. Now if you had a lot of negative experiences and traumatic and abusive experiences, then each one of those times that you were hit, abused, beat, ignored, disrespected, degraded in any way, every single one of those times will be like a cut on your mind, body, spirit system. Like an unhealed wound, like a cut that's never been healed. And the thing is, it happens subconsciously and unconsciously as a child, and so even as an adult you won't know that that's what's happened, and that is imprinted in your mind, body, spirit system, in your subconscious. And so those unhealed wounds, those traumas that happened to you as a child, will still be stored and will still be operating as the programming that determines your entire reality, which is how powerful those unhealed wounds are. So as a child, if you had a whole bunch of invisible and subconscious cuts and wounds and hurts that influenced your development, so it may have been that you, as a child, when you are honoured and respected and you're allowed to express your feelings and you're taught how to express your emotions and you're given a voice and you're respected, then you have one level of childhood development that helps you mature and grow into an adult that is able to create a type of life that you want. If you're a child who's experienced trauma and you have a lot of cuts and wounds, then that influences your development, and it's much harder for you to create the type of reality that you want. And so some of the realities that end up playing out is things like toxic relationships, overgiving, being angry, playing that out through violence or substance or abuse or addiction, or mental anxieties and worries that plague you rather than turn up every now and then. Because everyone has negative thoughts and emotions, but when they overwhelm you on a regular basis, it's more often than not a reflection of unhealed trauma and wounds from when you were a child. And if you haven't spent any time healing any of those unhealed wounds and traumas, then they will still be operating as your programming for your whole entire reality now. So in those years is when all of our thoughts and beliefs, the foundation of our life, is created, whether you know that or not. And it happens on a subconscious and unconscious level. And so if you experienced a lot of trauma, then you'll have a lot of programming that reinforces and repeats that same programming. And that's the reason why you may do things and behaviors and say things that you don't actually want to say. You don't want to be that type of person. You don't want to live that type of life, but you can't help yourself. It's because your subconscious programming is running everything in your life as a child, as an adult. So all this traumatic programming that happened to you as a child is still running in your adult life, and so that will be why you can't stop overgiving, or you can't stop being violent, or you can't stop freaking out, or you can't stop your addictions, whether that's overeating or drinking or smoking or whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with any of these emotions. There's nothing wrong with any of these behaviors. But when they take you over, especially when you don't want them to, then that's when it becomes a problem. And that's when it's ideal to start thinking about doing some healing work to heal those unhealed wounds and traumas, so that you can start to make choices in your adult life that are not run by your childhood programming, and especially if those are traumatic experiences that you had as a child. So if you want to have peace and love and joy and wholeness inside, instead of addiction and overgiving and relationships that are toxic to you, and not living a life that you really want to be living, not being the person that you want to be, the only way to change and become a better version of yourself is to dig deep into those unhealed wounds and do your healing work. And so I have a link in my bio to a free healing guide and forgiveness worksheets, which will help you to start releasing some of that old stuff, some of that old emotion, some of that deep buried beliefs and subconscious programming that were imprinted when you were a child and are still running it as an adult if you haven't done any healing work. And so the value of healing work is that it begins to heal those cuts and begins to help you to heal and feel better as an adult.